Just last week, I was sitting in a coffee shop in Maui, watching the sunrise paint the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. An elderly gentleman was carefully watering the plants outside, simple ornamental flowers in clay pots. Nothing spectacular, nothing that would make headlines, but he treated each plant with such tenderness, such purpose. You'd think he was handling rare orchids at the botanical gardens. I watched him for nearly an hour, fascinated by his dedication. When he finished, I couldn't help but walk up to him and ask, "Why do you put so much care into these simple flowers?" His answer changed my life. With eyes twinkling with wisdom, he said, "Because everything we do ripples across the universe in ways we can't even imagine. These flowers, they might be the only bit of beauty someone sees today, and that could make all the difference." How many of us wake up each morning thinking our actions don't really matter? That we're too small, too insignificant to create any meaningful change in this vast world of ours. Let me tell you something profound. Every single action you take is like a pebble thrown into a cosmic pond. The ripples you create touch shores you'll never see. Think about Rosa Parks for a moment. One woman, tired after a long day of work, who simply decided she wouldn't give up her seat. One simple action. Did she wake up that morning knowing she would help spark a civil rights movement that would change the course of history? No. She just knew that in that moment she had to act as if her choice mattered. Or consider Rachel Carson, writing Silent Spring in 1962 while battling breast cancer. One woman writing about pesticides and environmental damage at a time when few were listening. Did she know her words would launch the modern environmental movement, that they would lead to the creation of the EPA and change how we think about our relationship with nature? No. She just knew she had to write as if it mattered. You see, these people weren't superheroes. They weren't blessed with special powers or extraordinary circumstances. They were ordinary people who understood one fundamental truth, that every action, every choice, every moment matters. Let me share something personal with you. When I started my career as a counselor in Detroit, working with troubled young men, I often felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of their problems. How could one person possibly make a difference in the face of such deeply rooted challenges? But I remembered what my mother always told me. Wayne, just love them. Love them as if it's the most important thing you'll ever do. And you know what? It was. Years later, I ran into one of those young men at an airport. He was now a successful business owner, and he told me something I'll never forget. He said, "Dr. Dyer, you probably don't remember, but one day you told me I was worthy of love." Just that. And it was the first time anyone had ever said those words to me. That moment changed everything. How many moments like that do we miss? Because we don't believe our actions matter. How many opportunities to change a life slip through our fingers because we think we're too small to make a difference? The truth is, my friends, we're all connected in ways that defy our understanding. That smile you give to a stranger, it might be the kindness they've been praying for. That encouraging word to a colleague, it might give them the courage to pursue their dreams. That extra minute you spend listening to your child, it might be the moment they remember for the rest of their life. We live in a world that constantly tells us we don't matter unless we're doing something big, something newsworthy, something that gets millions of likes on social media. We've become so focused on grand gestures that we've forgotten the power of small actions. Let me tell you about a study conducted at Yale University in 2010. Researchers found that people who believed their actions made a difference were not only more likely to take positive action, but also experience significantly better mental health outcomes. They were more resilient, more optimistic, and more likely to persist in the face of challenges. But here's what's fascinating. The size of the action didn't matter. What mattered was the belief that it was significant. Think about that for a moment. The belief that your actions matter actually makes them matter more. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of the most beautiful kind. When you act as if what you do makes a difference, you start noticing opportunities you might have missed before. You become more present, more intentional, more alive to the possibilities in each moment. I remember teaching a workshop in 1992 where a participant shared something profound. She said, "I used to think I needed to wait until I had something big to offer before I could help others. Then my 3-year-old daughter got sick, and while we were in the hospital, another mother simply held my hand while I cried. That's when I realized that sometimes the biggest difference we make is in the smallest moments. You see, when we act as if what we do makes a difference, we tap into what I call the infinite ripple effect. Every action, every word, every choice creates waves of influence that extend far beyond our immediate sight. Consider the butterfly effect in chaos theory. The idea that a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil can set off a tornado in Texas. While that might be a metaphorical example, the principle holds true in our lives. Every action we take, no matter how small, sets in motion a chain of events that can transform lives, shape futures, and even change the world. But I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, Wayne, that sounds great, but I'm just one person. How can my small actions possibly make a real difference in a world with so many huge problems? Let me answer that with a story that changed my perspective forever. Back in 1987, I visited a small village in India. There was a young boy there who spent every morning picking up starfish that had washed up on the beach and throwing them back into the ocean. Hundreds would wash up each day, far too many for one small boy to save them all. One day, the local fisherman asked him, "Why do you bother? There are too many. You can't possibly make a difference." The boy picked up another starfish, tossed it into the waves, and said, "I made a difference to that one." That boy understood something profound that many of us adults have forgotten. He understood that we don't have to change the entire world to make a difference. We just have to change someone's world. You see, when we act as if what we do makes a difference, something magical happens. We stop being paralyzed by the enormity of the world's problems and start focusing on what's right in front of us. We stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating perfect moments. Many of you have ever helped someone in a small way and later discovered it had a much bigger impact than you realized. Raise your hands. Keep those hands up for a moment. Look around. Every raised hand represents a moment when someone acted as if what they did mattered. And guess what? It did matter. It mattered profoundly. You know, I remember counseling a young teacher in 1995. She was ready to quit because she felt she wasn't making any real impact. Her students were struggling, test scores were low, and she felt like a failure. I asked her to try something different for just 1 week. To act as if every single interaction with her students would have a lasting impact on their lives. She started writing personal notes of encouragement on every homework assignment, even if the grade was poor. She began each class by sharing why she believed in each student's potential. She stayed an extra 5 minutes after class for any student who needed to talk. 3 months later, not only had her students' performance improved dramatically, but she discovered something extraordinary. One of her students, a quiet boy who rarely participated, had been keeping every single one of those encouraging. His mother told her that those notes were the reason he decided not to drop out of school. One teacher, simple notes, life-changing impact. But here's what I really want you to understand. Acting as if what you do makes a difference isn't about grand gestures or heroic actions. It's about bringing consciousness and intention to every moment. It's about understanding that you never know which action, which word, which smile might be the one that changes everything for someone else. Think about the people who made a difference in your own life. I bet many of them have no idea the impact they had. The teacher who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. The friend who listened without judgment during your darkest hour. The stranger who showed kindness when you needed it most. In my own life, I think about Mrs. Scarf, my high school English teacher. She didn't just teach literature. She taught us to believe in the power of our own voices. One day, after I'd written a particularly personal essay, she kept me after class. She looked me in the eye and said, "Wayne, you have a gift. Your words can heal people." I was a kid from the projects, raised by a single mother, with no particular reason to believe I could make a difference in the world. But Mrs. Scarf acted as if her belief in me mattered. And because she did, I began to believe it too. You see, this is how transformation happens, not through grand proclamations or massive initiatives, but through individual moments of conscious choice. Through people like you and me deciding that our actions matter, even when we can't see the immediate In 2004, I received a letter from a man who had been contemplating suicide. He had actually written his goodbye note and was walking to his chosen location when he passed a complete stranger. A woman who smiled at him and said, "Beautiful evening, isn't it?" Just that. A simple smile. A casual comment about the weather. But that woman acted as if that brief interaction mattered. And because she did, this man stopped. He later wrote that in that moment he felt seen. He felt connected to humanity again. That simple interaction gave him the courage to seek help instead of ending his life. That woman will never know the difference she made. But imagine if she had walked past without acknowledging him, thinking her small gesture couldn't possibly matter in the grand scheme of things. You will never know the full impact of your actions. You can't. The ripples you create extend far beyond your vision, touching lives you'll never meet, influencing events you'll never see. But here's the beautiful truth. Your inability to see the full impact of your actions doesn't diminish their importance. In fact, it magnifies it. Because when you act as if what you do makes a difference, you're acknowledging something profound about the nature of reality itself, that we are all connected in ways that defy our limited understanding. Let me share with you 4 transformative principles I've discovered about acting as if what you do makes a difference. The first principle is what I call the power of present intention. Every morning when you wake up, set the intention that everything you do today matters. Not just the big presentations or important meetings, but every single interaction. The way you greet the barista making your coffee. How you respond to that frustrating email. The tone you use with your children before they leave for school. I remember a CEO I worked with in 1992. His company was struggling, morale was low, and he was considering massive layoffs. Instead, he decided to try something different. He started treating every interaction with his employees as if it was the most important moment of the day. He learned their names, their stories, their challenges. He acted as if each conversation could change the course of their lives. Within 6 months, his company had turned around completely. Not because of some brilliant business strategy, but because when people feel seen and valued, they bring their whole selves to work. They innovate, they persevere, they excel. The second principle is the courage of conviction. This means doing what you believe is right, even when you can't see immediate results. It's about understanding that some seeds take longer to grow than others. Think about Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous words. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. He didn't live to see his dream fully realized, but he acted as if every speech, every march, every peaceful protest would help bend the arc of history toward justice. And it did. You see, when you act with the courage of conviction, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. Your commitment inspires commitment in others. The third principle is what I call the multiplication of kindness. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, multiplies in ways we can't predict. It's like compound interest for the soul. In 2008, I met a woman who started a simple tradition in her office. Every Friday, she would leave an anonymous note of appreciation on someone's desk. Just as simple, I noticed how patient you were with that difficult client, or your positive attitude makes this a better place to work. Soon, others began doing the same thing. The practice spread to other departments, then to other branches of the company. 5 years later, this simple tradition had transformed the entire corporate culture. Sick days decreased. Productivity increased. Employee satisfaction scores soared. The fourth principle is perhaps the most powerful, liberation of legacy. Most people think about legacy as something you leave behind when you're gone. But I want you to think about it differently. Your legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you create in every moment. Every time you choose kindness over indifference, you're creating legacy. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you're creating legacy. Every time you choose to believe that what you do matters, you're creating legacy. I think about Rachel Carson again. When she wrote Silent Spring, she was fighting breast cancer. She knew she might not live to see the environmental movement she would help create. She acted as if her words would matter long after she was gone. Think about that for a moment. What if you treated every interaction as a brushstroke in the masterpiece of your legacy? What if you saw every moment as an opportunity to create something lasting? You know, I've spent decades studying human potential, and I've come to understand something profound. The people who make the biggest difference in the world aren't necessarily the most talented, the most educated, or the most privileged. They're the ones who wake up every day and act as if what they do matters. They're the teachers who stay after school to help one struggling student, not knowing that student will go on to cure a disease. They're the parents who read one more bedtime story, not knowing that story will inspire their child to become a writer. They're the environmentalists who plant trees they'll never sit under, knowing future generations will need their every great movement, every profound change, every lasting impact started with someone deciding their actions mattered. The civil rights movement didn't start with millions. It started with individuals making individual choices. The environmental movement didn't begin with global summits. It began with people making personal decisions about their relationship with the earth. The beautiful truth is that your influence extends far beyond your awareness. Just as you can't see radio waves but know they carry music through the air, you can't always see the impact of your actions, but they're carrying your influence through time and space in ways you can't imagine. Every person you interact with today will go on to interact with others, who will interact with others still. Your kindness, your wisdom, your example ripples outward through all of these connections, touching lives you'll never know about. That's why I want you to understand something crucial. You don't need to see the impact to know it's happening. You don't need immediate validation to know your actions matter. What you need is the courage to act as if they do, the wisdom to understand they do, and the faith to keep going even when you can't see the results. Because here's what I know for certain. In a universe where everything is connected, nothing is insignificant. Every action creates ripples. Every choice matters. Every moment counts. And this brings us to something essential that I need to share with you. Something that took me years to fully understand. The way you see yourself, your belief in your own significance isn't just about you. It's about everyone whose life you touch. When you doubt your impact, when you minimize your contributions, when you tell yourself that what you do doesn't really matter, you're not just limiting yourself, you're limiting your capacity to serve others. You're withholding the unique gifts that only you can offer the world. Let me tell you about Mariah, a hospital custodian I met in 2013. Every day, she cleaned the rooms of cancer patients with such care, such attention to detail, that doctors started noticing something remarkable. The patients in the rooms she cleaned had lower anxiety levels and responded better to treatment. Why? Because Maria didn't just clean rooms. She talked to patients while she worked. She remembered their stories. She opened curtains with a flourish, saying, "Let's let the healing sunshine in." She acted as if every small gesture could contribute to their healing. And it did. The doctors were amazed, but Maria wasn't. Of course, what I do matters, she told me. I'm not just cleaning rooms, I'm creating an environment of healing. I'm showing patients that someone cares about every detail of their experience. That's the kind of clarity we all need. That's the kind of certainty that changes lives. You see, when you truly understand that what you do makes a difference, you start approaching life differently. You become more deliberate in your choices, more conscious in your actions, more present in your relationships. Think about the last time you felt truly alive, truly purposeful. I bet it was when you were fully engaged in something you believed mattered. Whether you were comforting a friend, solving a problem at work, creating something beautiful, or standing up for what you believed in, you were acting as if your actions mattered. That feeling of aliveness, that sense of purpose, that's not just emotion. It's recognition of a fundamental truth about the nature of reality. We are all connected. We are all significant. We all matter. I remember counseling a young man who was struggling with depression. He told me he felt insignificant, like nothing he did made any difference. I asked him to try an experiment. For 1 week, he would act as if everything he did mattered deeply. He started small. He began making his bed each morning, telling himself this act of self-care mattered. He started looking people in the eye when he spoke to them, believing these connections mattered. He started picking up litter on his way to work, convinced that caring for his environment mattered. By the end of the week, something had shifted. not just in how others responded to him, but in how he saw himself. He realized that significance isn't something we wait to receive. It's something we claim through our actions. You don't need permission to be significant. You don't need validation to make a difference. You just need to act as if what you do matters, because it does. Every time you choose patience over anger, you matter. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you matter. Every time you choose to believe in possibility, you matter. Every time you choose love over fear, you matter. In my years of teaching and counseling, I've seen countless lives transformed by this simple but profound truth. I've seen marriages healed because one partner decided their everyday kindnesses mattered. I've seen communities transformed because one person decided their contribution mattered. I've seen movements born because one individual decided their voice mattered. When you act as if what you do makes a difference, you start attracting others who believe the same thing. You create what I call circles of significance, communities of people who understand and amplify each other's impact. In 2010, I worked with a group of teachers who were feeling burnt out and discouraged. They started meeting weekly to share stories of small victories, tiny moments when they felt they'd made a difference. These meetings became a source of inspiration and renewal. They reminded each other that every interaction with a student mattered, every lesson plan mattered, every word of encouragement mattered. Over time, their students' performance improved dramatically, not because they were using revolutionary teaching methods, but because they were teaching with the conviction that every moment mattered. This is the power of acting, as if what you do makes a difference. It's not just about changing your actions, it's about changing your perception of your actions. It's about understanding that significance isn't measured by headlines or accolades, but by the lives you touch, the hearts you open, the hope you inspire. You see, we're all writing the story of the world together. Every action we take, every word we speak, every choice we make adds to this collective narrative. When you act as if what you do makes a difference, you're choosing to write your part of the story with intention and purpose. Think about the story you're writing with your life. Are you writing it as if every word matters? Are you living it as if every moment counts? Are you choosing as if every decision ripples out into the universe in ways you can't even imagine? Because here's the truth that I want to leave burning in your hearts today. You are not insignificant. Your actions are not meaningless. Your presence on this earth at this particular moment in history is not an accident. In 1992, I had the privilege of meeting a Holocaust survivor who shared something profound with me. She told me that during the darkest days of her imprisonment, what kept her alive wasn't just the hope of survival. It was her daily decision to share her bread with someone weaker than herself. In a place designed to strip us of our humanity, she said, choosing to act with kindness was how we maintained our souls. Think about that. Even in the most dehumanizing circumstances imaginable, one person's choice to act as if their actions mattered created ripples of hope that helped others survive. Now, most of us will never face such extreme circumstances, but we face choices every day that test our belief in the significance of our actions. When we're tired and someone needs our attention, when we're hurt and have the choice to respond with kindness or bitterness, when we see something wrong and have to decide whether to speak up or stay silent. Your choice matters, your action matters, your presence matters. I want to share one final story with you. In 2014, I received a letter from a woman named Sarah. 30 years earlier, she had been a student in one of my lectures. She wrote to tell me about a moment I had completely forgotten. After the lecture, she had asked me if I thought she could make a difference in the world, given that she was struggling with personal challenges and didn't have many resources. She said, I took her hands in mine and told her, my dear, you're already making a difference. The only question is whether you're making the difference you were meant to make. Sarah went on to create a program that has helped thousands of at-risk youth find their path in life. But here's what struck me most about her letter. She wrote, what you may not know is that every time I doubt myself, every time I question whether my efforts matter, I remember how you held my hands and spoke to me as if my potential to make a difference was an absolute certainty. And in remembering that moment, I find the courage to continue. One moment, one conversation, 30 years of impact is what I want you to understand deep in your bonus. Every moment holds this same potential. Every interaction carries this same possibility. Every choice contains this same power. When you wake up tomorrow morning, I want you to try something. Before your feet touch the floor, say to yourself, everything I do today matters. Say it as if you believe it with every fiber of your being, because it's true. Then I want you to move through your day with that awareness. Notice how it changes the way you interact with others. Notice how it influences the choices you make. Notice how it affects the energy you bring to each moment. When you're talking to your child, act as if this conversation could shape their future. When you're doing your work, act as if your dedication could inspire others, because it will. When you're facing a challenge, act as if your response could help someone else facing the same situation, because it can. When you're extending kindness to a stranger, act as if this moment could be the turning point in their life, because it just might be. You see, the question isn't whether what you do makes a difference. The question is whether you're ready to accept the responsibility and joy of knowing that it does. Because here's what I know for certain. In this vast universe, where galaxies spiral through space and atoms dance in every cell, nothing is insignificant. Every action creates ripples. Every soul touches countless others in ways we can never fully comprehend. You don't have to change the whole world. You just have to change the world around you. And you do that one choice at a time, one action at a time, one moment at a time. So I ask you, what difference will you make today? What ripples will you create? What story will you write with your actions? Remember, you are not just a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Every action you take sends ripples through the vast sea of human experience. Every choice you make contributes to the unfolding story of life on. Act as if what you do makes a difference, because it does. It always has, and it always will. Thank you.